Welcome to the Octavius Gould Experience, and I'm your host, Octavius Gould. And today I am truly excited because I have the pleasure of introducing a guest who I know personally since the mid to early 1980s, a former teammate of mine turned competitor, and I'll get into that later. But I want to welcome Curtis Myers. Curtis, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great, man. So thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for joining. And just to give my audience a glimpse into your impressive background, Curtis is a graduate of the Wharton School. He is also the president and founder of Aspire Youth Development. He's a pastor. He's someone who is giving back tremendously into the community that he serves in South Jersey, where we actually grew up. And Curtis, again, I am so impressed with you as a father, you as a husband, you as a gentleman. And again, I'm just grateful to have you on my podcast episode today.
Awesome. Glad to be here with you, my friend. Glad to be here.
So let's get into it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I mentioned earlier that Curtis originally was one of my teammates at Pemberton High School. We played football together. But for some reason, Curtis decided to relocate to our competitor, a school called Willingboro.
Well, I didn't decide to relocate. My day, I was a military family, like a lot of the people in Pemberton, and so when we moved off base, we moved to Willingboro. So that was my leaving of Pemberton, which is hilarious because I left kicking and screaming. I was so upset about leaving Pemberton. I'd been in the Pemberton school systems with everybody since fourth grade, and I was looking forward. We had just finished my junior year of football. Was looking forward to senior year, and my parents said, "Hey, man, we bought a house in Twin Hills and moving to Willingboro," and I was like, "No." But everything worked out great, man. I had a great time at Pemberton, and I moved to Willingboro, and the guys there really welcomed me in, and I'm just was blessed to have two really great high school experiences, man. I'm really thankful for that.
Curtis, I just want you to know it hurt my heart because you just didn't move to a competitor. You moved to our top rival. If there was a serious rivalry between Pemberton and Willingboro, but as we joke about it, as you know, I had Troy Cobb on as one of my first guests, and we had that banter back and forth about the two schools. And I mentioned then, I'll mention to you now, I have lifelong friendships that I've developed between myself and some of the gentlemen who graduated from Willingboro High School. So I am, again, just grateful to have you on. But I do have a question. I'm going to put you on the spot right at the start. So
go for it.
What was the better school?
You got to give me the criteria, right? So I got to admit,
we'll just say football.
Oh, well, I mean, it's no question. It was Willingboro, but we were so good at Pemberton. We were always like right there. And then once I got to Willingboro, which was funny because when I got to Willingboro, I was so intimidated because I was like, oh man, we couldn't beat Willingboro. Willingboro was always one of the top schools, and we were just a notch below them. And now I'm like, I got to compete here as a senior to try to get a starting job. And I was able to, land a starting job as the starting free safety until I hurt my knee against Cinnamon. But they were a really good group of guys, and I really did enjoy my time. But I love playing with you guys, with Bruce Pendleton and Derek Davis and you and so many guys, Stacy Wilson, like so many guys I remember from my Pemberton days. But I love my Borough Pride boys. They're some good brothers, man.
Yeah, that Borough Pride. I know about that Borough Pride. Like I said, I have a lot of great friends who played at the Borough. We did get you after you left. We got
after
you.
I left. Yeah, y'all got us.
You got you pretty good.
But Ryan and them still won a state championship. So I was like, man, that was pretty cool. But I was kind of glad for you too, man, because I was like, Liquid they got over the hump. They beat Willingboro. So it was kind of bittersweet,
There you go. Well, as many people know, if you follow my podcast, we talk about entrepreneurship and leadership.
Yeah.
So to stay on that theme, you actually played for two of the greatest high school football coaches in New Jersey. I have tremendous respect for Coach Mack. I also have tremendous respect for Coach Belford, who you played for at Willingboro.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the lessons that you learned playing under two great athletic coaches who I know for a fact were not only developing athletes, they were also developing young men.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that or thankful that you mentioned that because those both of those men were so impactful in my development, not just as a young man, but helped shape who I am as a husband, a father, even a business leader. The values of discipline and hard work, the values of caring about other people. There's just so many lessons. There's lessons I remember from Coach Mack about learning about responsibility. And a situation happened where one of our captains made a bad decision, and Coach Mack made a tough decision not to allow him to play, and it taught me a lot about responsibility. Like I remember that situation very well, and even at Willingboro, playing for Coach Bell, even though I was only there a year, there was so much I learned about. Giving it everything you got. And probably one of the most important things I learned from Coach Bell is my senior year there at Willingboro, I was injured. It was about five of us that were injured in the state championship game, five starters. Um, and we were in the stands and we lost to Ocean City 22-21. So we lose the state championship game by 1 point and we have our banquet. I think it was like the next day or not too long afterwards. And I remember, guys were hurt, still upset. And Coach Bell said to us, he said, listen, I know you guys are disappointed. I know it was tough. He said, but guess what? The sun still shines today. And sometimes in life, things aren't going to go the way you want, but you got to get up and keep pushing because there's going to be another day, another opportunity. And
Right.
it was one of those lessons and moments just stuck with me about, hey man, life, there's going to be some very difficult times and disappointing times, but there's always a tomorrow and tomorrow brings a hope. And it's something I've always carried with me. And so I was grateful to not only be coached by those men, but to be mentored. And, I was so sad to hear the passing of Coach Mack. And ironically, I literally saw Coach Belford at a flag football event. We just happened to be there. He was watching his grandson, and I saw Coach Bell and just got a chance to tell him how much I love him and appreciate him. And earlier this year in May, we had a reunion of that football team of that era of Borough ball. And it was also Coach Bell's 80th birthday, and it was so nice to see all these former players just come and give this man his flowers and just tell him how much he meant to us. He was more than a coach; he was a father figure. One of the things that I often tell people is, I don't know if I would have got to the University of Pennsylvania in Wharton if it wasn't for Coach Bell. So, interesting story. Coach Bell, I'm sorry, the coach from Penn was recruiting Kyle Stevenson from Willingboro, and so he came to see Kyle, and Coach Bell said, "Hey, I got another guy who's got really good grades, and he can play. I think he can play for you at Penn." And so the Penn coach wasn't there to recruit me, but he met me and said, "Hey, I'll give you a shot." And I was grateful for that opportunity, and it got me to the University of Pennsylvania to help get me in the door. And I only played my freshman year. It didn't work out for me on football, but I was able to get great education, made some lifelong friends, and got a degree from the Wharton School of Business. So I was grateful for those opportunities. And I often share that with young people because sometimes it's so important that you present yourself in the best possible way and opportunities will come for you, right? So I didn't, when I was at Pembroke, I never thought about playing college football. I was looking at guys like you and Buster Parrish and all the other guys that I thought were like really good athletes. But I got some confidence when I was at Willingboro working with those guys, and those guys had that ambition. But I was a great student, and so the student part really opened the door for me, and that's what kept me because it's tough once you get to college and you think you can do a thing and you realize that it's not really for me. But I got to do the education part. That was the biggest thing, and so I was really grateful for those great men and the role they played in shaping me.
Absolutely. Great, great men. I love my Burrow brothers to this day. And I assume that you were required to have a higher GPA to get into University of Penn than I was to get into the University of Florida, Minnesota. Is that assumption
No
correct?
comment. No comment.
Well, thinking back to the days of, being a college athlete, then getting injured and having to, endure that situation. Because, like me, I know you were passionate about playing sports, but you were also focused on your education. What did that lesson that you learned after getting hurt at Penn and going through that teach you as
Yeah.
you're working with youth today who covet to be a professional athlete or a college athlete?
Yeah, I think so. Just point of clarification. I actually got hurt at Willingboro,
Okay.
tried to recuperate, and when I got to Penn, I just wasn't the same.
Okay.
But those guys were just better. Like, I mean, I tell people that sometimes. And in terms of stuff for young people, I always help them understand, like, no matter how good you are, no matter how hard you work, there's other people out there that just may be better. But you got to find your place. You got to find your thing. You got to control the things that you can control, right? I can't control somebody else's 40 time over my time. I can't even control my own 40 time. There's certain things that I can work on to get better, but there's just certain things, like I always tell young people, like, no matter how hard I work, I can't dunk a basketball. I couldn't dunk a basketball when I was 18, so I can't dunk it now at 56, right? But I can work on things that I can control and get better at. So I can control being a better student. Like, I can do that. I can control, being a better servant in the community. I can control, there's certain things that are within my skill set, within my ability, and I must maximize my abilities. And so when I got to Penn and realized that football wasn't for me, and I never had any dreams of the NFL or anything like that, but I just realized, like, hey, the time is up. Like, I literally remember that last game my freshman year, taking off my uniform and saying, I'll never wear this again. Like, it was emotional, but it was like, okay, it's time to move on. And I think that's something that's helped me as well. Like, in life, there are times that you've got to pivot, you've got to adjust, because the method isn't always as important as really the message of where you want to go, right? The end goal. So sometimes the strategy's got to change, but your goal won't change. My goal was never to be a superstar football player. My goal was to be a good contributor to society. And so football gave me relationships, it gave me character lessons, it gave me a lot of things, but it was never the goal. And so now the strategy had to change. So I got more involved in campus activities and certain clubs, and joined a fraternity, and just certain things that I got involved with that continue to offer that same shaping and leadership development and character development. And so just the strategy changed.
I love that. I can reflect on my days as a high school athlete, and I remember someone coming to speak to the team, and they were talking about the percentage of athletes who make it through college without suffering a career-ending injury, and then the percentage got even smaller as it related to the athletes who were able to transition from college into the pros. And I think it was maybe 1%, 1.5%, 2%. And I can remember being a young man, this was maybe even my freshman year at Pemberton, listening to this thinking, I'm going to be that 1%.
Mm-hmm.
But as you talked about, there are things that are out of our control. You can be in the greatest shape, you can be well prepared, but when you suffer that injury bug, and if it's something that ends your career prematurely, and it's something that you have to deal with physically and emotionally, you have to pivot and
Yep.
rely on the words of our parents as it relates to the importance of education. I know your parents were the same as mine and always talked about there's one thing no one can take away from you, and that's your education.
Yep.
And that was something that I thought about when I went through my career-ending injuries in college, was that I needed to get my degree. More so, it was a promise that I made to my mother, but
Yeah.
it was something that they conditioned us to think about throughout our careers, even in college, knowing that you still got to go to class,
That's it.
you still got to hit the books, and you got to
Yep.
represent your family's name. And I'm quite sure your parents were telling you the same thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's funny because one of the things I always tell people, like, my mom and dad didn't come to a lot of sporting events, but anything that was like academic, they were there. You know what I mean? And they always I had like I had a certain GPA that I had to maintain. And I remember one time I messed up on a test at Pemberton and I dropped I dropped to a C in this one class. And my dad was upset with me because he was like, "You're not a C student." It was like, this is like, don't drop your standard. Like that may be okay, that may be acceptable, and I'm not telling anybody if your kids are C students, if that's their best, that's their best. But he knew I was better.
Right.
And so I faced that pressure of you just got to do your best. So they never were like, oh, you're not starting in football and I'm disappointed. I never heard anything about that. But when the things that they knew that I was like, well, you're a you're an AB student. Like there's no reason for you to get C's. If you work, you will get it.
Right.
And that's not something that I have to compete against anybody. I'm just competing against myself. And so those were some of the lessons that still speak to me now. Like I've got to do the best that I can and not look to others, in competition with others. If anything, let me collaborate with others. Let me work with other people so it makes both of us better. But that idea of I've got to give it my best is something that definitely rings true to me.
And because we're connected on social media, I've been able to get a glimpse into your life as a father,
Yeah.
and see the videos and images of you, your lovely wife, and your kids. So, as a father, what are some of the lessons you're instilling in your kids or you have done throughout their lives that you were able to adopt from the words and the guidance of your parents?
Yeah, I think so. So like you, Octavius, I'm also a girl dad, and so it's different. And I joke with folks about, you can tell girl dads because I used to have an afro, but teenage girls would just do stuff to you. But but I love being a father. I never forget when my first daughter was born 8.5 weeks early, premature, and being in the hospital. And the first time I saw her, it just changed me, man. Like life just it meant something different. I had to stop being self-focused and I had to think more deeply
Right.
about others. But I think the lessons that I hope I've instilled in my daughters is number one, your dad always loves you. I'm going to support you. So your love is unconditional. There's nothing you can do, great or bad, that's going to make me love you more or less. And so I always wanted my girls to feel the security of acceptance. And then I wanted them to always do their best, similar lessons that I've learned. So I've always supported, their endeavors and just wanted to push them to be their best. And then I think a value that I see in them that I'm like, wow, I'm not sure if I taught them or they caught it, but they really do care about other people. I see the way they care about their friends. I see the compassion they have about others, about the people that might be different than them, and they're champions for that. And I think it's something about those types of values. So it's funny because my daughter reminded me that I gave her these lessons when she was playing sports. Specifically, my girls were field hockey players, and I told them, it was like 4 keys. One was like get better every day. Give it everything you got and just get better every day. I told them to learn something every day, learn something about the game, learn something about yourself. And I told them to not just work hard, but to also have fun.
Right.
Like the fun will come, but the fun comes after work. And so, like, you'll be able to enjoy it. And I told them always cherish the memories. And so they reminded me, it was Father's Day a few weeks ago, and they kind of reminded me in a car. They said something, I still remember those 4 lessons. And we talk about those things. But yeah, I think being a father has been one of the greatest joys of my life.
For me, being that girl dad, I think I enhanced my emotional intelligence and
Yes.
acquired a level of empathy that transitions well in the business world. So I think there's so many lessons that we learn as girl dads that we can take into our business and professional lives that can make us better leaders. How do you manage or balance life and work being a father and a committed, dedicated husband?
So I think everything in life is about priorities, right? And seasons. And so there was a season in my life that being a dad took a lot more time, right? You had to pick them up, you had to do this, all these different things. Well, now my daughters are grown. So I can't even believe I'm about to say this. My oldest daughter just turned 30 last week. So like I'm on the empty nest other side of it. And so now I have a different role as a father to them. It's more of a guide and a mentor. And I don't have as my influence is there, but I don't have the authority control over their lives like I may have had when they were younger, right? So it's a different priority.
Okay.
My wife and I, we just celebrated 33 years of marriage in March. And so at different times of our lives, we've been through the ups and the downs of marriage and the time you're with somebody, but we've always stayed together. And I think for us, it's been a focus on our faith, and our faith has kept us strong and kept us connected even through the difficult times. So when I look at the different roles and responsibilities in my life, I think it's always about being present in those moments and realizing I don't know if balance is achievable, but I do understand that like priorities are something that you have to focus on. So this season of my life, I don't have to prioritize my kids as much as I did before. I can make decisions without them, but I do have to prioritize my wife. And then when it comes to work, I've got to be able to, when I'm working, I've got to work. When I'm involved in stuff with the church, I got to be involved in the stuff with the church. When I'm doing certain things in the community, that's got to be, I got to, where my feet are, that's where I have to be. And to give it the best attention I can. I know I've got something else to do, but like right now, I have the joy of talking to my man, Liquid Bam, Octavius Gould. And so that's everything that's important to me right now at 11:44. That's the most important thing. Everything else will take care of itself when I'm done with this. And so that's kind of for me how I try to manage that stuff.
Okay. And you mentioned the church. You are a pastor, and I've listened to you speak and was so impressed. Not
I appreciate
surprised, because I've always been impressed with you as a person. How has your faith shaped who you are personally and professionally?
I think it's the most dominant thing that shaped my life, not only being a follower of Jesus and understanding his love for me and his love for other people, it has given me the values to really know that my life is bigger than my own. I've got to care about other people, and I have to help other people be everything that God intended them to be. And so for me, I was raised pretty much in the church. But those values kind of stuck with me. I've strayed and had my moments and different things, but the core values of caring for other people and helping others be the best. In the Bible, they call it discipling, right? So how do you help somebody be the best version of themselves? That shaped me in terms of even the business and the world that I'm in. I went to school, I went to Wharton to be a finance guy, got into entrepreneurship management as a second major, became my dominant major because I realized that's who I was. I went to school because I liked math and I thought finance was different than accounting, so I'll be good in that. And I'll go to Wall Street, I'll make billions of dollars, right? That was my plan. And God just started arresting me in terms of, what should be my focus and attention. And so I've used my business skills and the things that I learned at Penn to work in certain nonprofits, certain organizations, and help them make a business case for the work that they do, putting the marketing skills and management skills, all the different things that I've learned, I've kind of combined it. And ultimately, it led to me starting Aspire, which is actually a for-profit training organization that really focuses on how do we help develop the next generation of young people for the workforce. So for us, it's about how do you get the young people to have the skills that they need so they are the right talent that these employers and these industries are looking for. We have so many businesses that are having an aging workforce, and then we've got younger people coming into the workforce that don't necessarily speak the same language, don't have the same values. And we have to be able to help the young people understand why the company needs you to do it this way. And I think going back to something you said about being a girl dad, right? When you're a girl dad, and I don't know about boy dads because I don't have any boys, but I know the way you have to explain things. I know the patience you have to have. I know the ability to communicate things. And I know the sensitivity, right, that you have not to break their spirit. And so I think those skills kind of inform me in terms of how I teach our staff to really work with young people so that they can understand why it's acceptable or not acceptable, certain behaviors and certain things, and how to be motivated to improve their skills to make themselves more marketable, because this is the greatest time for them to be alive. There's so many opportunities out there, and they just have to be prepared and equipped to go seize those opportunities. So for me, my faith, my work, my fam, all that stuff is intertwined. But yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
And prior to starting the episode, we were talking about a client call that I had and the importance of being able to handle crucial conversations as a leader. It's even more important as a girl dad. Those crucial
Yes,
conversations, every conversation is a crucial conversation, right?
we are well equipped from that.
So, Curtis, you founded Aspire Youth Development about 20 years ago, from what I
Yep.
gathered during my research. Talk to me about the challenges that you faced starting an endeavor such as that and how you went about overcoming any challenges or adversity to get to the point where you are at today, impacting so many people within the community.
Yeah, I think it always starts with the why, right? What's your why? Why do you want to be in this business? How does it happen? So my why was I saw a need to provide very specific leadership training services for young people. So at the time, I was working full time for an organization and I had left. And one of the schools that I had worked with at that nonprofit had said, "Hey, we could use you. I know you don't work at that company. Can we hire you to do some leadership training for our students?" And that's when I just started Aspire. It was very part-time, and I did, these interactive leadership sessions and things to train young people on how to be effective leaders and use community service as a training tool for them to be effective leaders. It was part of an initiative called the Points of Light Youth Leadership Institute. And so I did that for a number of years, very part-time, worked with other community organizations, basically being a consultant, being a person who could design programming for them, put the right infrastructure in, and sometimes execute the programs. And then in 2014, about 10 years ago, I went full time with Aspire. I left one employer and I was thinking about, what's next? What should I do? And I was working with an executive coach and they were saying, I don't know if we need to update your resume. It seems like you need to go give this Aspire thing a full-time effort. And I had a daughter in college, and I was like, man, I don't know. He said, well, you're not like most businesses. You've already been in business for a while. You're not starting from zero,
Right.
and you get the momentum. And literally, once I made that decision, it wasn't 30 days later that I got a contract that really kind of helped get us going. And then within a year, I was able to hire my first employee, and things have been growing ever since. And just really grateful to God because it just seems like when you take that step of faith, for you, it's like he opens the doors. So it's like you don't have to see the whole stairway, just see the first step. Just take that first step.
Exactly.
And that's kind of how my journey has been. I've just taken a step and a step. And right now, we're growing. We're doing some really good work. We got a staff team of 8 people now, making some really, really good impact and a lot of different opportunities, primarily around workforce development.
Okay.
But we're also moving now into doing some corporate training to help companies train their younger staff, so their existing staff. And then we're looking to be able to do more of kind of what I call the executive search for young talent, right? How do we help find these young people and specifically pair them up with companies, and where companies are looking to fill positions that they're having a hard time filling with younger talent. And so how do we pre-screen these young people, give them the essential skills that they need? Because we know that the companies are going to always train them on their hard skills or their specific skills, but companies aren't going to train you on professionalism. They're not going to train you on emotional intelligence. They're not going to train you to show up on time. They're going to assume that you know how to do that when you walk into the door, when you send that resume in. But the harsh reality is a lot of our young people, they don't fully understand that stuff. It hasn't really been taught. And sometimes the benefit of this younger generation is they question things. And so they'll often say, well, why do I have to do that? And most people don't want to tell you why. They just say, because I said so, kind of like our parents did. But sometimes you've got to be able to help them understand this is the why, because if they understand the why, they'll go hard for you. This generation is more committed to social justice and certain things, and they have this value of I will give it my all when I see my all is worth it. And so you got to make that paycheck and that position make sense to them. And when they see like, no, you're not just an analyst, or you're not just a clerk. this is the role that you serve in this organization. This is what's important. There's somebody who's counting on you to do that data entry correctly because their pension isn't going to get paid if you mess up. Like, you are literally responsible for somebody's well-being. And when
Exactly.
you start having those kind of conversations and they see like, oh, they see where they fit in the big picture, it gives their jobs, it gives their vocations, gives their lives more meaning. And I think that's part of the challenge that we have to communicate to business folks, but also to our young people, that they've got to be able to find the meaning behind the work. Our generation was raised that your meaning was get that paycheck, but this group is more like, I need it to matter, and so we got to help them see how it matters.
It's interesting what you're saying, because some of the most compelling conversations I've had in the past few months happen to be with younger people.
Hmm.
There's a young person that I know who graduated from the University of Alabama and then also got a MBA from the University of Vanderbilt. And when we're having a conversation, I'm ready to take out a notepad.
Yeah.
The conversation is on such a high level for that person's age. I'm just always blown away with how intelligent in their thought process, which I think in many cases our younger generation can come across as intimidating when they're interviewing with frontline leaders. You know, people who are interviewing and hiring younger people who are in their, low 20s, the 21-year-olds, 22, 23-year-olds right out of college, they're coming well equipped to have intellectual conversations that sometimes will make the hiring authorities apprehensive because they're a little bit fearful of their talent and skill level, and potentially, is this person someone who may take my job? So what advice do you give to the individuals who you mentor to position themselves in a way that will make them even more compelling during that interviewing process?
Yeah, I think it's important to use two sides of a coin, right? There's this side that says confidence. You've got to be able to demonstrate what you can do, but you also have the other side of the coin, which is humility. And the reality of, this is what I know, this is what I think I know, but I have to humble myself because I know that you're sitting in a seat where you can teach me and I want to learn. And so it's hard to get both sides, the interviewee or the young person, the young professional, the early stage career person, and the seasoned person, to realize we both have to walk in confidence and humility. So there's some stuff that we can learn from young people. There's definitely some stuff. These guys are digital natives. There's just stuff that they know. There's stuff that they will embrace quicker. They don't have questions about, is AI a bad thing? They'll just jump into it, right? So there's that innovation that they bring. But then there's also the wisdom of maturity of some seasoned folks. And so you've got to be able to communicate that to young people. And I always have seen, and I know this value to be true, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Once you connect with people, especially young people, man, they will want to learn from you, and they will be willing to, if you can humble yourself, they will be able to teach you things. And so I think we both win. That rising tide will raise both ships, but we have to learn how to work well together. But for the young people coming in, I'll often tell them, you have to be able to show that you are an asset to the organization because you can solve a problem. And I
Right.
said, I don't care if it's just being if you think it's, well, I'm just working at Papa John's. I said, well, if you work at Papa John's, that owner has a problem and you can be the solution. Their problem is they can't make all the pizzas, they can't answer all the phones, and they can't deliver all the pizzas. If you can solve one of those problems and you can solve it well, you're adding value to that organization. And once you add value to an organization, you make yourself more valuable. And so those are the types of mindset shifts that we have to help our young people understand. Show how you can add value, humble yourself to know that they can add value to you, right? And make sure you're a problem solver. Know that you are solving a problem. Go into work thinking, what's the problem they've hired me to solve? And then be about doing that.
Absolutely love it. Curtis, what advice could you give to a parent who has a child who wasn't afforded the opportunity to be coached by a Coach Belford or a Coach Mack, or be in a program that's shaping their competencies and skills, such as Aspire Youth Development, as it relates to how they can prepare their children
Yeah.
for those, younger year career opportunities and that interviewing process that they're going to go through.
Yeah, I believe in mentoring, right? And I think that mentoring isn't always a force where you sign up and you get assigned a mentor. Sometimes you have to discover the mentors around you, right? So I've had, I had, established opportunities for mentor because everybody didn't receive Coach Bell and Coach Mack as mentors.
Right.
That was our choice, right? They were same person, but helping your son or daughter find other mentors and voices that can speak into them, and then find mentoring moments, find those teachable moments where you can discuss something and see, here's the principle behind this, here's the factor, whether it's something that's in pop culture or something that's happening, in the news, or just something in your family life where you're teaching those teachable moments to help shape them. And then when it comes to helping them discover their career interests, right? There's so much out there that you've got to stay open to, number one, helping them find their passion that they can also be profitable with, right? So, you may want to be a dancer and that may be your passion, but can you survive off the opportunities that dancing can bring? So what can you do to either help you get into that field or support your passion to do that? And so I think it's really about looking for those coaches, those mentors. For me, I was actually blessed. I had some great deacons in the church that I went to that used to teach me some things, man. They were teaching me stuff without thinking they were teaching me. They would tell me stuff. I remember one guy was telling me early on, he said, man, buy a house as soon as possible. And I was like, why? He said, man, you got to build equity. He said, man, he said, I bought a duplex in Trenton when I first got married. I rented out the one part and paid for the other part. And he said, man, don't worry about the size of the house or look at it. Get yourself a piece of property. This was a deacon who worked at the post office. He wasn't a financial analyst or whatever, but I remember those lessons, right? That those people that can come into your life, and you've got to be able to recognize nuggets. And so I think as parents, our job is to help our kids recognize who are those voices, what are the lessons that they're learning, and not just trying to always protect our kids and make them win. I've had difficult conversations with my daughters when maybe they didn't think a teacher or a coach did what they thought they should do. But it's to help them understand, well, what do you think they were trying to get across to you? And what do you think what's the lesson you think they were trying to teach you? And maybe they didn't say it or do it in the right way, but they didn't really hurt you. But it might hurt your feelings, but let's think about the bigger lesson. And so helping them navigate through that. And I think those are some of the things I see in my girls now. They're able to speak up for themselves, but they're also able to check themselves because sometimes they can recognize, like, I didn't like that, but that's true.
Now, you have so many different balls that you're juggling.
Yeah.
Pastor, husband, father, president of Aspire Youth Development. When you're going into your weekend and your plate is full, as it is all the time, what is it that you do to give yourself enjoyment, to take care of Curtis?
Yeah, I got to do better than I got to be honest, man, because so for me, I like, getting a quick workout at LA Fitness. I like walking my dog, but I was just talking to somebody about, like, I got to get a hobby, right? Because, I hang out with friends sometimes or whatever, but I need something like, cycling or, I'm not a person that will do like a bowling league, but a friend of mine just said that she just got connected to like this rowing club and she started doing crew. And I was like, man, that's like, I just got to find me a hobby. But, I just find those quiet moments, by myself or, with the missus, and I'll read something sometimes or listen to a podcast or something like that. It's funny, people think I'm super busy. So I'm fairly busy, but I have plenty of time. And you make time for what's important to you.
Right.
But self-care is something that I got to do better at. But honestly, some of the things that I do is self-care. I was just at Logan Ryan had a football camp at Eastern High School, and I was just there helping out, volunteering for a little bit. But it was, for me, it was self-care because I was just remembering I coached against this guy when he was at Eastern in high school, and I watched him go to Rutgers and to the NFL, and he played in won two Super Bowl rings with New England. And I saw his giving back to his community in Voorhees, and met his father, and we've just been, connected. So it fed my soul to see, like, man, you're doing all right, man. You just finished your career. You're retiring. You're a good family man. You've got an animal rescue foundation. And just being around that, it wasn't work for me. It was just like, hey, I'll set up the cones for the kids over here. But just watching that also fed my soul. So some of the things I do, they actually feed my soul. And people think like, oh, you're serving or giving back. But I think sometimes my service serves me too. Yeah.
I love it. Well said. Well said. So, Curtis, what advice would you give to your 21-year-old self? Now, you weren't into the things like the rest of us in Pemberton and Willingboro. You were.
Oh, I was into some things now. Those things just didn't get me. That's all. It's interesting because I think when you're 21, number one, don't be so hard on yourself, right? Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace to grow. And realize that while life is short, you've got a long time. So you don't have to, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So, moving away from comparing yourself to others or where you think you should be at 21, 22, just stay in the race. Just keep running, just keep, moving forward, be willing to adjust and to pivot. I think about the different jobs and careers and things that I've done to get to now as a 56-year-old. I'm like, wow. Number one, it doesn't seem that long ago that we were playing at Pemberton. It doesn't. I remember doing the loop and running to Fort Dix to practice a couple days a week and then coming back. And I remember all those things. It doesn't seem like it was almost 40 years. So it takes a long time, but it goes fast. So, just be true to yourself. Really focus on taking baby steps to keep getting moving forward. And maybe just have the right people around you who can and allow people to be the right people in you, right? Who can give you feedback, direction, correction, all those things. And I think you'll be very fortunate and blessed.
And thinking about, specifically the community that you serve in South Jersey, what are some of the programs that are out there that, reputable men and women who, have a skill that they can actually transition into helping others develop their competencies and skills can get involved in to really serve as well as you're serving the community?
Yeah, I think there's a lot, right? So ironically, I was just meeting with a good friend of mine, Sale Musso in Burlington, has the O League. And I'm thinking about in Camden County, there's Hope Works. And, there's all these organizations that are doing great work. I think the challenge for most folks is people don't know, where do I turn? Where do I start? How do I find out about some of these things? But the good thing is, man, you can just Google stuff. You can Google youth employment programs or youth workforce program or sports training programs or whatever it is. You can Google it and then just start finding the right people. But I think it's also just talking to people. I'm learning more about career opportunities for young people that don't require college and really helping them trying to think about, hey, there's plenty of young people that graduate high school and they're ready to go to work. They don't want to go to college. And then there's a bunch of our young people that, they go to college maybe for a year, maybe not even a year. Their financial aid doesn't work out, situations, whatever. They're back home. They've got a little bit of debt and they need to get a good job. And so having those conversations with them to think about that, joining, going to Chamber of Commerce events and meeting people. I have found that there are more people that want to help you than most people know, but you got to just ask. Because when people ask, when you ask somebody for help, oftentimes it makes them feel valued, like, wow, you think I can help you, and they're willing to do things for you. And so I'm always surprised that people are reluctant to say, hey, I need some help with this, and knowing that somebody's like, they probably will help you. Depending on what it is, they probably will help you.
And I'm sure you're a continuous learner like myself, and as sharp as you are, I'm also sure that there's an area of development that you're continuously working on. Like one of the competencies or skills that I am working on enhancing is my ability to be more concise because I'm a talker. I like to talk. And a special person in my life will tell me, you need to be more concise. So I've worked on that. What's the one thing that you're working on as my audience listens to you, watches you, and they walk away as impressed as I've always been with you as a professional, that will show that you never stop developing yourself?
Yeah, I think I'm always just trying to learn some new stuff, right? I subscribe to different podcasts. I make sure like spiritually I'm always on the Bible app and doing certain things so I learn more of my Christian values that can really shape me and give me the guidance, give me the communication that I need. But I feel like just being in around with other people, like being a sponge and trying to learn. So whether I'm at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon and I'm meeting people, I'm not just there trying to get business, but I'm trying to learn about, tell me about your business, tell me what you're doing so I can learn some principles or some things, or maybe I can even make a connection for you. Maybe I know somebody that can help you with that business problem, or I can learn something from you that it might not be a business problem for me today, but it might be one 6 months from now. And so I think for me, it's what you said, it's being a continuous learner. You don't ever feel like you've arrived. You feel like I'm on this constant journey, and I'm trying to just pick up what I can along the way.
Curtis, I am so grateful for you being on my podcast. How can people get in touch with your organization, Aspire Youth Development?
Yeah, I think the best way is just go to our website, aspireyouth.com. That's ASPIRE, aspireyouth.com, and reach out to us that way, or just shoot me an email at info@aspireyouth.com. And then if you're in the central Burlington County area and you're looking to maybe grow your faith and connect with people that are on that same journey, we're a young church that just started this a couple years ago, actually at the end of the pandemic. We started the planning during the pandemic. But we're at the Regal Cinema, so it's theengagedchurch.org, theengagedchurch.org. And so whether you're saying, hey, man, I'd love to connect with you to do some business stuff to help my young workforce or connect my young son or daughter into the workforce, whatever I can do, love to help you with that. But if you're saying, hey, man, I want to be part of a church family or I want to grow in my faith, the Engaged Church is a very connecting church, a very loving church, non-judgmental, casual place, but a place that believes in the authority of God and can really help us navigate life together. So yeah, anyway, reach out to me. Yeah.
Well, Curtis Myers, my friends, has been my guest today. He just told you how you can get involved in his church, how you can get in touch with his organization, Aspire Youth Development. Curtis, I need to take this opportunity to give you your flowers because I've known you, and I mentioned I've known you since the mid '80s. Actually, we knew one another even before then. I'm just not trying to date myself or you. But my friend, I just want to tell you how thankful and grateful I am for representing all of us. Gentlemen from that South Jersey area, from Pemberton, from Willingboro, everything that you're doing within the community is not going unnoticed. I've been wanting to get you on my podcast for over a year because, again, social media has provided me an opportunity to get a glimpse into the lives of others. And that glimpse into yours just really impressed me, didn't surprise me because I've always known who you are and what you're about. And the things that you're doing in that South Jersey community is just really so impressive. It's one of those things where I wish all of us would carve out more time to give back. So you've inspired me to do so. And I just wanted to thank you. Thank you not only for myself, for all the parents whose children lives you're touching out there, and just tell you, keep doing what you're doing because you are making a tremendous impact on the community that we both love. So thank you, my friend.
Hey, man, I really appreciate you. And thank you for this opportunity. You've been somebody I've definitely admired from a long time. Even when you were a year under me, I was like, man, that guy, he looks like he's going to be something special. And I definitely call that one right. So I just appreciate you for the man that you are, the great work that you're doing. And I know that you're making significant impact in the business world and making our lives better. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you. And for my audience, please hit like, subscribe, and share this episode. We need your help because, like Mr. Myers, we are looking to bring on compelling professionals who can give you a roadmap to success. And success is all about how you define success, what that means to you. It's not always about money. Sometimes success is about showing other people how to be successful as it relates to them being a better student, them being a better servant, them being a better father or mother or a friend. And Curtis is doing all of that throughout that community in South Jersey. So make sure that you find Curtis on social media, find his church, find his youth development organization. And again, my friend, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you.
Thank you, friend.